It's super funny. It's so goddamn funny.
Wow. Schoenbrunn? That's the name of this director. The name of this director of this movie. We're all going to the World's Fair.
Oh, okay. Is Andrew having like a party in there?
Hmm. Too loud?
I can hear it.
I'll tell.
Say Zach said shut the fuck up.
Can you turn it down? Zach says it's too loud.
Shut the hell up.
Yeah.
It's too loud. Also, hello. BT dub. Hello.
I said you gotta turn that music down. We can hear it. Sorry.
Can you turn that music down? Shut the fuck up.
I ain't saying
I'm gonna
that.
beat your fucking ass.
That's the love of my life. You know that?
Yeah, he's fine.
He's not the love of your life.
He's not mine, so I mean that's I can say shut the fuck.
Yeah, you can. The love of my life.
All right. We're going to talk about French people.
Did we just go live? Or have we
We've been live. I've been insulting Andrew for 2 minutes.
Heck. Dang.
Yeah. All right. Here we go.
Oh, we're starting, man. Okay, wait. Let me make sure my Audacity isn't bad. I just pressed the red button, right? I hope so. Okay.
All right. In 3, 2, 1. And welcome.
Hold up. It's doing some bullshit. Hey, Andrew.
Can you hear you behind the really loud music?
He's coming, I think, hopefully. Oh, why does this always happen? Why does this always happen? Okay, wait. Yep, it's doing this. Why does this always happen to me? I'm sorry, Zach. It embarrasses me.
Hello. What's up?
This every time. Why is it doing this?
We definitely have been really friendly to you over the course of this episode so far.
Okay, it's working now. Jess.
Why?
I just closed the Audacity and opened it back up.
Why does this always happen to me?
That is generally a fix for whatever, but sorry.
I swear, it just knows I'm vulnerable and sad. It preys on me. All right. Count us in, Zach.
All right. In 3, 2, 1. And welcome to episode 403 of Cinematary. I'm your host, Zach Dennis, and I'm here with
Jess.
In today's episode, we're going to be talking about movies that we saw this week in part 1 and part 2. We're going to be continuing our Gregg Araki series with 1999's Splendor, which would make more sense if we had a third person in this podcast, but that's fine.
Oof. Awkward one to just have 2 people in. That's okay, though.
This episode brought to you by my giant beer stein.
Giant, big ol' mug of beer.
Yeah. Brought to you by, as well as PBR, who's sponsoring us. All right, well, let's talk about movies that we saw this week. Do you want to go first? Or do you want me to go first?
I will go first. Yesterday, actually, I watched We're All Going to the World's Fair. It's directed by Jane Schoenbrunn. Not sure. Came out in 2021. So basically, it's kind of like Evil 8th Grade or something, about a girl who's pretty online, like a teenage girl, very online, constantly making little YouTube videos, trying to get an audience, and her maximum audience is like 50 people or something. But I guess there's some funny challenge going around called the World's Fair Challenge, and they make you like prick your finger and smear it on your computer screen and watch some like flashy video, and then it's supposed to like let something evil into your soul or something, and then you're supposed to continue to make videos of how this thing is like affecting you. And so everybody's making all these scary videos online of how this evil thing is supposedly affecting them, to varying levels of some of them are just people saying like, yeah, I can't feel my body, and I just feel like I'm dissociating and things like that, or to things that like somebody shows a video of them having like this green stuff growing on their flesh, and then they like are able to like peel open their flesh and pull out like tickets, just like kind of gross stuff. But a lot of it, like as you're watching it, it obviously looks fake. Like it looks like it's special effects, and it looks like you're supposed to know that. So what you find out at a certain point in the movie is that the whole thing is kind of like a role-playing thing. Like everybody is continuing to make these series and following along in this series, that you can keep watching, like, oh, the scary phenomena, all the while in the back of your head knowing this is kind of like a silly horror role-play game. Nobody's really doing these effects. None of these things are really happening to these people. They're just trying to, I don't know, basically make a trendy video that's like, wow, this happened to me. But the teenage girl, her name's Casey, that she decides to jump in on this challenge. And I think maybe it's not so clear whether or not she realizes that it's it's fake, like it's just people acting and kind of just doing kind of horror acting kind of thing, and gets really like psychologically worked up in it. Her videos become kind of increasingly scary, and scary as in it doesn't seem like she's acting, and people on the internet can tell. And her behaviors become pretty aggressive and intense towards the end. I don't know. I think it's kind of an interesting concept for a movie. And I like these kind of like very online horror movies that have come out in the last few years, like Host, I thought was really good, about the girls who do like a Zoom seance or something. And I really liked the way that they did that. And Searching, I think I really liked that one too. This is like another kind of take on that. I think those like very online horror type of movies. Most of it is played through most of the storytelling is played through like YouTube clips, and you're kind of just seeing how a lot of this plays out and people are reacting to it. But then there's a lot of non-YouTube clips where you're actually seeing live characters just living life and seeing how they're affected by all of this. So on the one hand, I think that was like an interesting storytelling method. On the other hand, I think some of it to me sort of just played as a little bit dull. The videos just kind of seemed like, very low budget, kind of boring YouTube videos that, I don't know, that's how some people consume YouTube, I think. Like, you just have some kind of algorithm of things you're trying to watch. Like if you're a kid who likes unboxing videos, your YouTube will just like autoplay stuff like that, you know what I mean? And it'll just continue to play. And it's sort of something like that feels like, I don't know. I don't really understand that kind of media consumption to begin with. I don't think I'm like an online YouTube kind of person. So some of the content to me was just a little boring. Like it felt like it moved a little slowly. But I think just as a premise in general, it is kind of just psychologically horrifying and also just generally upsetting. I think the way that media and like the way that has become such an expansive part of our lives, I think specifically how it affects young people is disheartening to see. And I feel like as a person, I've been really trying to consciously pull myself away from being online. I mean, texting friends to me is like one thing, but I've been trying to really not get on like Twitter, Instagram, things like that at all, because I just don't really like. I don't really like how that influences and impacts and like can be just very addictive. And so like there's a part of the movie where the girl talks about she doesn't really know how to talk to people anymore. Like she prefers like non face to face or non like real live face to face interactions. And it's scary for me to think like if that could be like a trend more and more moving forward. That like I was thinking earlier today, and this sounds kind of silly, but I was not really feeling like getting out of the house and I didn't really feel like cooking. I thought about ordering food. And for just half a second, I thought about this concept of like, what if we just didn't have sit down restaurants anymore because everybody just wanted things delivered? Um, like I think even large spaces for commercial shopping is the thing that's dying out. What if like indoor dining and just sitting together, something that died out too? I don't know. I'm getting on a tangent here, but it was an interesting idea. The execution to me was a little bit boring at times, but I think the implications of it have kind of been sitting with me. So maybe I liked it a little bit more than I originally thought I did. There were some genuinely kind of scary or just upsetting, disturbing moments in it, where this girl, you just kind of saw her flipping out or saying some very concerning things. And
Is it more like a horror movie?
Yeah, it is. I mean, I think it's supposed to be like a psychological horror movie, but it didn't ultimately end up being as scary. It's kind of like, I don't know. Have you ever gotten, maybe not like recently, but I don't know, the original kind of creepypastas before it was like really obviously fake? I don't know. Were you ever the type of person, maybe early days when you were on Facebook when you were a lot younger, and you would see kind of scary horror stories going around, and you found out time and time again that they were fake, but maybe originally you didn't know that they were fake? And it was kind of something like that where maybe you found yourself going down a rabbit hole of like Google or YouTube or something trying to find out the answers, but it would be some really silly thing like some creepy doll or something. So that's kind of what this is. Just a girl who's found some scary challenge and doesn't necessarily realize that it's really just people acting and spreading silly, scary stories together. But she doesn't really take it that way, and I think it really takes a big toll on her psychologically. As she really does begin to believe that something bad is happening to her, and maybe plays into that so much that it sort of eats her away. And then you end up finding out at the end that she did end up needing like psychiatric help. No, it's upsetting more than it is scary by the end, I think. But I think, like I said, I think it's just sort of an upsetting trend that I'm curious what the long-term implications will be for like youngsters online, or just how much I think the population has moved online. And that's my thoughts. We're all going to the World's Fair. Is it?
Do they ever get to the World's Fair?
Guess you're gonna find out. I don't really know
Dang.
why it's called that. But I did see like a little. Somebody had some drawing or something that had something on it, and then it said some year, and then it said Knoxville. So, wow, that's it.
Shout out to the real one.
I thought it was interesting. Everybody else I watched it with, Jessica, Andrew, and Cam, I think they liked it a little more than I did, but
I think all of them think that they're very sophisticated, so don't worry about it.
I don't know. I'm just a humble movie watcher, folks.
I'm just humbly just trying to enjoy my movie.
I'm just Jess,
Just yeah. All right.
Jess.
It's not streaming, it's like available to
I think it's available to rent on Amazon. I think we rented it on Amazon to watch it. So check it out, especially if you've dug some of those other like online horror type movies. It's definitely like more low budget than some of the other ones I've seen, but I thought it was well made, well acted for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I think also she looks a little like my sister-in-law too, and my sister-in-law's she's very online. I don't know, a lot of similarities, and so maybe that was striking a little home for me too. But check it out if you want or don't. I'll never know. Unless you write in and tell us.
Yeah, let
Do
us
it.
know.
Let us know in the comments below. Or don't. Or get offline. Go outside. Look at a dumb waterfall. I don't know what to tell you.
Okay.
It's an inside reference of the movie. You wouldn't
Oh,
understand.
okay.
Yeah, you wouldn't get it,
Yeah.
Zach.
No, I haven't
Yeah.
been to the World's Fair yet.
Yeah, and been. We're all going though.
Well, speaking of getting off the grid, I'm going to talk about the 1993 Harrison Ford classic, The Fugitive.
All right.
Fugitive, short review, fantastic.
Okay.
For those who are unfamiliar, it follows Harrison Ford, who is like, oh shit, what kind of doctor is he? I think he's a brain doctor. But the beginning, this movie's fucking wild. So it like starts and Harrison Ford's like at a gala or a ball with his wife, and then it's cutting between like a crime between that and like a crime scene and him going to the police office or to the police station because his wife has been murdered and he's been accused of murdering her.
Mhm.
And so like the literally the first like 20 minutes of this movie is Harrison Ford going to prison or going to the police station, being questioned, going to court, being convicted of murder, being sentenced to death.
Heck.
and then he gets on so then he gets on this bus and he's heading to the prison. And there's like this just I guess they're like the people in the bus plan like a prison escape, and so like they have this just giant this whole incredible set piece like in the middle of the street where they like the bus like crashes and a bunch of the prison people get out and Harrison Ford gets out, but also like saves one of the police officers in the bus. And so then he's on the run, and they bring in the U.S. Marshals who are led by Tommy Lee Jones. And Tommy Lee Jones is determined to find Harrison Ford no matter what. And that's the rest of the movie because it's Harrison Ford is trying to figure out who killed his wife. He keeps saying it's a one-armed man. And they're like, you sound like an insane person. And so he spends the whole movie trying to uncover the secrets of why his wife was killed and, you know, who killed her and all that kind of stuff. And Tommy Lee Jones is trying to bring him to justice. And the movie's quite like, I just love movies like this so goddamn much because like in the first off, I just explained the first 20 minutes of that movie. And that's just an insane way to start a movie is just Harrison Ford being convicted of murder and being sentenced to death. And then you have like this insane set piece where like the bus crashes, but then it crashes on a train track and then a train hits it. And there's like this giant, it's just, it's fucking, it's just so awesome.
Yeah.
And then Tommy Lee Jones shows up, and like one of the first things he says when they find out that Harrison Ford has like escaped and is still alive is he like quotes the average speed that a person would be walking through the woods and by like calculating that how far away he would be. And I was like, who the fuck would know that stat?
It's like a forensic police who's also a huge fucking nerd.
He was just like, well, moving at like 4.6 decibels. He's like tossing this. I'm like, what the, like who would know? I was like, this is amazing. I love this movie so much. Like who the hell would know that? Like off the top of their head in the middle of the police investigation. Rest of the movie is fantastic. It's Harrison Ford running around and Tommy Lee Jones chasing him around Chicago. This is if you've seen the gif of Tommy Lee Jones going, I don't care. This is where this movie's from.
Okay.
It's great. They just like run around Chicago. There's a bunch of incredible set.
So, but is Harrison Ford? You said he like saves one of the police. I thought he's not trying to escape. Like he's not trying to turn himself.
No, he tries to escape because if he doesn't escape, he's going to prison and it's going to be killed.
But he wasn't part of the escape plan thing.
No, it's just the I guess the people the convicts on the bus were like, we're going to escape. And so yeah, the rest of the movie like is just him uncovering it. And I'm not gonna spoil. It's on HBO Max. Highly recommend watching it.
All
Like I
right.
said, super fucking fun. It's like
Okay.
and honestly like low key great action movie. Um,
I'm trying to picture. I guess I don't know why. It's weird for me to picture Harrison Ford in that kind of role, but I don't know. Maybe I've only seen him in more like fantasy, sci-fi kind of things, and this is just like a straight action. It sounds like.
yeah, I mean this is like Air Force One. Um, what is that? Witness, like that kind of like that Harrison Ford, Jack Ryan, like that Harrison Ford. He's not like Indiana Jones or Han Solo.
He's
It's
not even
more
like hunky looking either. Like he's just kind of a guy.
no, he's just like a guy. Yeah, he's just like a
Yeah.
doctor. He's just like a guy who his wife's murdered and he has to figure out who did it. And there's like a and then it like it unwinds into this like insane conspiracy and like it like is tied to like these pharmaceutical companies like the whole like the plot turns into like these pharmaceutical companies are trying to get rid of Harrison Ford. I'm like, this is awesome. Like I love this. Like what the hell, like what is this? It's fantastic.
Man, what even put that on your radar to watch?
Because really, why would you not want to watch a Harrison Ford movie? And also, it's been people talk about how entertaining like of an action movie this is.
Mm,
Concur on that one.
mhm.
It is great.
Yeah, cool.
Um, so if you just kind of want to watch a nice two hour change Harrison Ford action movie where he and Tommy Lee Jones go nose to nose on a bunch of different things, and they run around Chicago, and there's a lot of just great like one lines, and the pharmaceutical company is the bad guy. Then have I got a movie for you? But
All right.
Fugitive, fantastic. It's on HBO Max. Highly recommend.
Nice.
Yeah, it's great.
Cool.
It's my favorite kind of action movie. Um, the other one I want to talk about is the complete opposite of that, and it's a super ass French movie. It's like one of the most French movies I've seen in a while. This one is new. This is actually a relatively new release. I think it just started playing in New York in theaters. But I caught it here in Savannah. It's Anaïs in Love. It's directed by Charlene Bourgeois Taquet. This is her, I want to say it's her first feature, or first or second feature. She's done a couple short films. But Anaïs, the main character, she's like 30. Um, she's 30. She's broke. She has a boyfriend, and then like but she's just very like scattered. She's very all over the place. Like honestly, it's a kind of stressful movie because a lot of the
Mm,
movie is just her like running around explaining stuff to people that doesn't make any sense, but like doing it very frantically and then
mhm.
moving on to something else. And the people are just like, what the hell are you talking about? Like a good example is like you meet her boyfriend at the beginning and she she's like 20 minutes late to a movie and she runs up to him and he's like, you're 20 minutes late. And she's like, oh yeah, sorry. And then he's like, I mean, it's fine. And she's like, well, you want to go watch the movie? He's like, no, I'm not gonna. We're like 20, or like we're 20 minutes into the movie. Like, I'm not gonna go watch the movie. We can go do something else. She's like, all right, we'll go walk around and do French stuff. And then like they're like starting to walk and they're like having like just light conversation. She's like, oh, by the way, I'm pregnant and I'm gonna get an abortion. He's like, the fuck are you talking
Oh my
about?
gosh.
And she's like, yeah, like I'm going to get an abortion. And
Yeah.
he's like, oh, he's like, I mean, like, you're not gonna say anything? She's like, I don't have to say anything to you. And he's like, oh, all right, okay. So that's kind of how she is. So then she goes to this party and she meets this older man named Daniel.
Hmm.
And for whatever reason, she decides to like, well, I'd say start fucking him, but they don't really fuck. Like at one point, they're like in bed together, and then she gets out of the bed to do something, and she comes back. She's like, yeah, I don't want to fuck you, and he's just like, okay. Um, but then she learns it keeps like time jumping up and all along the way you have like this kind of subplot where she's kind of going home to see her mom who had cancer but it was in remission but then it's come back and so she's like dealing with that but then it brings her back to like Paris where she's living and so after she decides for whatever reason, I forget, it's just kind of a like flippant reason why she doesn't want to be with this guy, this older man, Daniel. she becomes like infatuated with his wife. And so his wife is like an author and a number of other things. And she's speaking at like this conference. And along the way, Anais has like supposed to turn in her thesis, her master's thesis. She's supposed to like work to set up like these travel plans for this conference and these other things. And she just like ditches all of that to go to like the chateau in somewhere in rural ass France, because that's what French people do. And she like and she wants to like follow Emily, which is the wife of Daniel, this older man that she was with. And she just like stalks this woman for a whole conference until the woman's like, you know what, like whatever. And so yeah, so then she fucks this guy's wife who she was sleeping with. And honestly, it's like, I'm just like, it's literally legitimately like one of the most French movies of all time that I've ever seen, because it's just like the movie is about
Kind of meandering.
just this kind of meandering girl who like has no money but lives in like a really nice apartment in Paris, and then is sleeping with everybody, is naked half the movie, is smoking cigarettes at different points, is having, is bisexual, is reading, is going to like conferences at chateaus where they just like read in like the pasture, is like eating food, is, I mean, like, it's just fucking French the entire time. Which again, I'm not saying that as like a slight to it. It's just like after a while, I was like, I like leaned to the person I was watching this with, and was like, this movie's so goddamn French right now. Like, it's almost like they could have called it just French the movie. But yeah, it's enjoyable. It's kind of it's a sweet little movie. Anais is a very like, it's a very exhausting person. I didn't totally love her. So because she's just like all over the place constantly. She's just like, she's bouncing around. She just says stuff to people, and you're like, the fuck are you talking about? But then it's kind of nice because like you have like this whole where she's like, the whole point is that she's like chaotic all over the place, and then she gets with this woman, and she gets very much like very centered. But then the woman's just kind of like, listen, like, we had fun. We made out on a beach. That was cool.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna go do like adult author things. And that
sounds like Francis, like chaotic, horny Francis Ha or something.
Kind of. It has a lot of like Francis Ha vibes. It has a lot of like, yeah, I think that's a good. I think like Greta Gerwig's character, that's a good touchstone for it. So if you want to watch a French version of Francis Ha,
but way hornier, because I don't think there's like any romance or sex in Francis Ha, really.
Yeah.
Oh, also, it kind of reminds me of, but I'm blanking on the name, and I'm going to sound really dumb. All I remember about it was French, and I remember there's this scene where she just like rides with a trucker and has sex with this trucker, but I feel like there was also this whole plot about her missing her ex-girlfriend and something like that. But the name of the movie is not Cleo from.
I don't know. This is like a super French movie. It's crazy. But yeah, Anaïs in Love, I think I think it's in playing in independent theaters and art house theaters at the moment. But
it's a new one. I thought it was like a 70s one or something.
No, it's brand new. And it should be, I would assume, probably like in some like on Hulu or something like that, probably later in the next few months or so. But it's fine. It's a charming little like breezy movie. If you want like a nice little like, afternoon in France. I mean, I wish I got to like go to a literature conference and just sit at a chateau and sit around reading and, banging my boyfriend's wife the entire time. But
don't we all,
yeah, don't we all? So, Anaïs in Love. Check it out.
Is it Chantal Ackerman that I'm thinking of? No, it's bugging me. Sorry, I don't know.
I'm gonna let you stew on it. But all right, we're gonna take a quick break, and then we're gonna talk about a bunch of other horny people after this.
Wait, now I'm annoyed. Give me a second. I'm gonna figure this out. Because it just sounds like, chaotic, horny Francis Ha, but also Something else. Not is it Je tu il elle maybe? Have you seen that? Je tu. Is this what is the? Yeah. I think this is it, but I don't know. That might just be about one girl. Doesn't matter. It's over. My moment to shine is gone.
It's some French movie, you know?
They all kind of run together.
Yeah. It's a charming little movie, though. It's, you know.
You liked it fine?
Yeah, it was fine.
What'd you give it?
Would I give it?
Yeah.
I don't know. I gave it something. I don't ever remember when I rate things.
Let me see. Oh, let me see. I want to see which book. Oh, you gave it 3.5. You liked it pretty good. Fugitive was better though.
Fugitive's great. There's a lot of like setting up outposts and Tommy Lee Jones talking about stuff, and then Harrison Ford like solving things, and then like them like figuring out where he lives and like raiding his house, but then he's left already. It's great.
Would you say that action is your favorite genre?
No,
What do you think is your favorite?
I don't know. I just like movies.
Yeah. They're just good.
Let's just sit here in silence and make good YouTube. That's good video content.
That's really good. I was wondering who would break the silence.
All right.
We're just rolling through it, man. I feel like we're gonna have a lot of repeated. Well, this time you saw it. Last time, I've talked about Splendor on the podcast before, but last time you hadn't seen it, so now we can talk about it together.
Okay.
Oh boy! Wow, so special.
All right. You ready?
I guess so. Ready as I'm ever gonna be, Zach.
All right.
Okay.
Here we go. In tree, true, trun. And we're back with part 2 of episode 403 of Cinematary. In this part, we're going to be continuing our Gregg Araki series with 1999's Splendor. Written and directed by Gregg Araki. The film stars Kathleen Robinson, Jonathan Sheck, Matt Kieslar, Kelly MacDonald, and Eric Mabius. An average, calm, mid-20s girl named Veronica restarts her dead dating life all of a sudden, but with two guys, a sensitive failed writer named Abel and an airheaded drummer named Zed. At first she despairs, then she finds a way to date both without them finding out. Then she has to
That's
tell
not
both
true.
about
She
it.
does well. No, she tells them right off the bat, like, I'm going to be dating both of you. Like, she never tries to hide anything, so that's like not accurate.
Well, I don't know. This is what the logline says. You take it up with Google.
I will. I'll call him.
On figuring out the ending of the film, Araki told Filmmaker Magazine, quote, "Most of the time, I don't really know where a film is going to end. With certain films, I begin with an ending. With Totally Fucked Up, I knew where the film was leading, but with The Doom Generation, I knew something was going to happen, but I didn't know what. With Splendor, it was not so clear where I was going to end up. I knew that I wanted a sort of design for a living type situation. I knew it was going to end on an optimistic note, but what that was, I didn't know. I did know that this was going to be my first movie with a happy ending." On making a screwball comedy, he told Filmmaker Magazine, "Partially this movie grew out of doing the teen angst films and getting flack for only doing teen angst films. People would say, quote, can't you do anything but teen angst films? And I would always have to explain that it was a trilogy. There are 3 films to a trilogy. After that, I wanted to do something different, and from film school, my 2 favorite genres were the screwball comedy and the couple on the run film.
Mhm.
I was supposed to do a studio film at New Line about 2 years ago, but the movie didn't happen. As an anecdote, I started working on a smaller project that was a screwball comedy. I wrote to Kathleen, Matt, and John with the idea of the 3 of them together. The very concept was reliant on the idea of movie stars. On the 3-way marriage in the film, Araki told Filmmaker magazine that, quote, the film comes from me putting myself in their place, thinking about the kind of emotional ramifications of their situation. There's a chemistry between the 3 of them that cannot be divided into 2. It is part of the way that Abel and Zed are yin and yang. Together, they complement each other in a way that makes sense. The film doesn't really focus on the homoerotic elements, except when they are forced to kiss, and it becomes somewhat tantalizing, which is kind of a reversal of the usual 2 lesbians kissing for a guy. But there is a chemistry between the Abel and Zed characters. It is about how they work that out together and each alone. Together, there are a sort of rules which they need to figure out. And to some extent, that is what the film is about, figuring out how they are going to live. In 1999, the New York Times said Gregg Araki's film Splendor is almost a textbook example of what can go wrong when an artistic bad boy decides to be good, or rather half good, since the romantic triangle Splendor explores a pretty woman living happily with 2 pretty men and sharing her bed with them, is in its way transgressive. And in
What does that mean,
1999,
transgressive? Like,
against the grain.
okay.
Yeah. In 1999, the Variety said, after devoting most of the 90s to various explorations of teen angst, Gregg Araki reasserts his potency as an innovative, unpredictable filmmaker with Splendor, an erotically surrealistic comedy centering on a menage a trois, a reworking of classic screwball comedies. Splendor is a decidedly late 1990s tale in its stylistic, if not thematic, treatment. One likely to please the 20-something and MTV crowd. A small distributor may be intrigued by this upbeat, visually stunning, but inconsequential picture that holds limited commercial appeal in today's market. That's a little bit backhanded compliment. All right. On that note, let's talk about Splendor. Yeah, since you had seen this before, was this your second time watching it?
I think it's my 3rd time.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
what is what has grown in your appreciation with Splendor in each time that you've watched it?
Well, I've already talked about it on the podcast once last June in our Pride series. There's just so much I really like about it, and so as I'm listening to these reviews, where do I want to begin? Well, first off, since the last time I watched it, I've rewatched Design for a Living as well. I think when I first watched Design for a Living, I shall say I'm a huge Ernst Lubitsch fan. He's one of my favorite directors too. At first time I was Design for a Living, it didn't do as much for me. But this most recent time I rewatched it, I liked it a whole lot more. And then I realized that Splendor is almost like a modern retelling of it. I think there's a lot that they're restricted on being able to do in Design for a Living, like when it was filmed, especially with regards to, like the sexual component of the relationship, where that they really do explore that a lot more in Splendor. What's frustrating, though, I guess, as I'm hearing some of the reviews that you read off, is everybody's just kind of chuckling at it, like it's this like, oh, these silly people who they're just too horny for their own good and this and that and that. There's a lot of very sensual scenes in it, but I think all of that is really coded in like a genuine loving relationship from the get-go. Like even the way she will tell it, she's like, I never really considered myself some kind of like hypersexual person. A lot of it wasn't about the sex. And she talks about like, when she gets with Zed, there's this like real erotic passion and tension that she had not really felt for somebody before. And you could tell, like, as her character narrates, also a lot of people, I see reviews saying they don't really like her narration, but I think it just shows that she really, like, you don't have to be some like crazed sexual deviant to enjoy how like that kind of intimacy in a relationship, but also enjoy the value of the lovingness in the relationship too. I think so much of the movie just spends time showing you how much they all 3 care for each other, and it's really, really cute to see. Like one of my favorite scenes, it's just so cute. It's like right before she finds out she's pregnant, she's sick, and she's all like, oh, I feel yucky, and Zed is like, what do you need? And she's like, just lots of lovin'. And then what's his name? Abel comes in with like the corniest little stuffed animal ever. I love that the guys are just these like himbos. They're just total. At first, they make it seem like Abel's gonna be like the smart guy, but within like after like 2 or 3 scenes, you realize he's pretty much like just as much of a himbo as Zed is. He just also reads or writes or whatever, whereas Zed just like lifts weights. But they're also wholesome, and I think that's what I love about it. It's just I can't watch it and just not feel this very silly, wholesome, real love between the 3 of them. It makes me smile, but it's frustrating to me that people just kind of see it as this like airy movie that has no depth. I think it does have depth. Like even just thinking from the social um, or like the economic standpoint of their relationship could have been a happily ever after with no issues. I mean, there probably would have been some, later on in their lives, they would have had a hard time dealing with judgment from outside people. They never really delve into that. They talk about how that could be a problem. They never really delve into it, but they're running out of money. And so they're all struggling to actually live their authentic, happy lives together because they can't afford to take care of themselves. There are people in their early 20s and they can't find work that will cover the cost of living. And so she thinks about like leaving a lifestyle that is really happy and like completely whole for her to abandon that for somebody else who can give her a comfortable life. And it just eats her up. I mean, it kills her because that's not the life that she's meant to live. And it wasn't love. It was just something that she needed. I don't know. I think it's beautiful. I also think I appreciate it newly this time in the context of watching some of Araki's earlier work and see Araki's earlier work. And like he said, he had a lot of these like sadder themed movies. And this is finally him breaking away from that and saying, what if queer people had a nice, happy ending after all? And he gets to do that and have a lot of fun with it and make something lighthearted after kind of focusing on some heavier themes and like queer love. And so I like that he made this like happy, sweet, polyamorous movie, even though nobody uses that word to talk about it and nobody uses that word in the movie. It's what it is. They're in like a polyamorous triad. And there's also like, I don't know, like Araki does make queer movies with sad endings a lot of the times, but I think it's nice that he just doesn't do that here. I think I also mentioned last time we talked about it that the way that it'll kind of fade in from colors, like it'll finish a scene and then it'll do like a hard fade into like a bright color, whether it's red or something else, reminds me, it feels like it's gotta have been pulled straight from Le Bon Air.
Yeah, that's the movie I was kind of thinking the
Yeah.
most of in relation to this, just because
Yeah.
of like how it treated the different relationships between like the central character and the 2 people that they were with, as well as just kind of like the color patterns and aesthetic.
Yeah. The difference being, I guess, that everything is consensual in this, and in Le Bon Air, it's like non-consensual non-monogamy that doesn't end well for the characters. I love Le Bon Air too. I think it's just so airy and beautiful, and I don't think ultimately it's as cynical as my take on it is not as cynical as some people's takes on it, but I don't know. Whereas Le Bon Air is this just like really airy, floral, I don't know, kind of cozy summer movie. I feel like this is definitely much more punchy, like Araki. Fuck, why am I getting in my head about this?
Oh,
Araki's
whatever.
Gregg. Call him Gregg. Double G Gregg. He does that thing in all of his movies, and I think I appreciate it more and more with each movie, where he really just drops some like funky, loud characters in it. Thinking specifically about what's her blue hair friend's name?
The Kelly MacDonald character.
Yeah, she's got a guy name. Hang on, but she's that kind of loud, obnoxious Mike character. But I feel like he always throws in just like really wacky, like peacock type of characters that just kind of like float in and out of his movies. One of the interviews we watched after we watched Nowhere was him talking about how he just likes to kind of drop funny characters like that in because that's kind of what LA feels like for him. You'll just be walking down the street and you'll just see some like totally wacky looking person, but this is like every street. And I don't know, when I first kind of started watching his movies, I guess I thought that was a little bit off-putting or annoying, but he just is playful. I think that he's just a really playful director. He's not somebody who will just like sit with like really heavy, really serious for too long. Even when there are the heavy and serious moments in any of his movies, I don't know, he still kind of cuts it sometimes in more intense, but intense to the point of hilarity, or I don't know, I just think he's fun.
Yeah, no, I think this one, he mentions in like the interview that like this is supposed to be a little bit like he aimed to make it a little bit lighter than like the other ones, because the other ones have kind of like this not breeziness to it, but they're very breeziness to it, but like this kind of free flowing nature to it. Like I think that you can have fun with elements of like Nowhere and the Doom, like all three of those like trilogy films, just because there's moments of it where the characters are just kind of moving around and interacting, and it's kind of fun, even though it may not end in a super, in a way that's like that you categorize as fun. And this one is much more light and breezy the entire time, even in like the moments when she's kind of struggling with the relationship with Zed and Abel, and is considering this third guy. Like it never feels like it never feels like it bogs it drags down into like this kind of very dour into this very dour vibe. I think that it feels pretty natural. One of the things that I noticed, especially like in his earlier stuff with like The Living End, and it's probably with the first two of the trilogy, Totally Fucked Up and The Doom Generation, like he really has like this great like he really captures language in the language of like these characters in this environment very well, like these kind of 90s MTV influenced characters, like they talk like that, and it kind of can be presented as being unintelligent or less, lesser, but like there's really like this kind of poetry to the way that he crafts like the different things that they say, like especially in The Living End, like the back and forth between the two characters is really great. And I think that kind of lends itself pretty well to a screwball comedy like this, where you really kind of have to have not only the visual flair and the chemistry between the characters, but also you kind of want to have this like repartee between everybody. I finally caught up with Down with Love, which I know a lot of the Cinematary people like, and like that's a movie where it's very, very much constructed on Ewan McGregor and Renee Zellweger. It's just kind of like back and forth, like the lines back and forth between the two of them, and like this is very much the same thing.
So
like
sharp.
You have to kind of just lean on the language between these three characters. And I think he nails that.
Yeah.
I mean, as like as a comedy, does it work for you? Like, is it something that you kind of are laughing at or engaging with it in that fashion the entire time?
Yeah, I mean, I think as I think just as neat and sweet as a story is, I think it does roll pretty funny too. I'm trying to think specifically of like what I think are some of the funnier moments of it. I mean, I think the two guy characters, especially closer as the movie draws towards the end, I think they get like increasingly wacky. And I think he does this kind of like cutting thing too in all of his movies, where he'll, I don't know, do something where it's almost like they'll be cartoonish, like from vomiting to pulling their heads out of toilets to like frantically showering, covering their entire face with shaving cream, and then shaving their entire face. Like it's over the top cartoonish.
Yeah, there's a kind of cartoon quality to that final scene where she's at the wedding and Kelly MacDonald's character calls them to be like, "Hey, you need to stop this," and like they, well, first it's just from Abel trying to like find the phone and then answer the phone and then get Zed together, and like just that whole
Yeah.
sequence of events is very like, it feels like you're in a Looney Tunes cartoon.
It really does, yeah. But I don't even dislike that. And maybe, I don't know, maybe I've just got some like rose-colored lenses on about this movie or something. And I don't know, somebody else could write it off and say like, no, this is just goofy. But I don't know, I think it's fun. I think even Mike, like, she hardcore annoys me kind of at the beginning of the movie, and I feel like she's supposed to, but like I said, I think that's just something in his style where he writes these just like really, really loud, bombastic characters. But I don't know, I think like ultimately her heart is always in the right place. Like, she's trying to be protective of her friend, and she thinks that this guy is just being annoying, but I think part of her is also like a little conceited in her own story. So when her friend is like, no, I'm genuinely dating these two guys, maybe all of her actions are sort of like protective of her friend, like, oh well, people are going to be really weird to you, people are going to be super shitty to you, but by the end she realizes that this is the right life for her. This is where her life is. And when she knows she's about to marry somebody that just like totally is not for her, Mike knows she has to stand up for her friend and give her that life, Veronica. I don't know. Yeah, the whole ending scene and the goofy ass like tuxedo suits that both of them wear, like they're like the brightest colors, and then the way they just go running and jump into the pool. Like,
Oh, that's great. That reminded me of that scene from The Other Guys where The Rock and Samuel L. Jackson jump. They say they're aiming for the bushes and they jump and hit that awning and just die. Like, that's what it reminded me of. Just like, it's just like this over the top jump where they jump from like the thing into the pool.
So absurd.
I think Down with Love is a good comparison. It's, kind of touch point, just because thinking about the reviews for that and the reviews for this, like those are both. I think that I think more modern audiences, even critics, struggle to kind of get with screwball comedies. I think they're familiar with like His Girl Friday or Bringing Up Baby or something like that, like in the more or It Happened One Night, like classic versions of it, because there's kind of like this precedent that it is like that, like there's kind of that classic precedent of like you're going in expecting it to be in this format, like this is just how screwball comedies work. It's a little absurd. They're going to talk like this. The language is going to be like this is just how this is structured. And I don't think we necessarily go into especially movies like this, well, in a modern audience sense, because I think a lot of times with our comedy, we want to kind of like we want like this level of depth, like this kind of preconceived depth behind it, and like screwball comedies have zero depth. Like it's all icing, it's all icing on top of the cake. Like it's all, there's zero substance to it. It's just firing off lines and like how those lines play between the characters, and it's much more understanding, like getting on the level of the language of the movie, not with what you necessarily value as being a funny thing. And so I think, to the point that you said about like how these reviews seem kind of down on it, I think that's just the nature of like screwball comedies, like when it comes to like the last 20-25 years, because I don't think people are willing as like people watching movies to kind of hang with these types of scripts and these types of films, just because it's so built on like this constructed world that has zero substance, that is just kind of flying off the edge. And that's kind of a bummer.
Well, I think it's annoying too, because I think just in general, like you're saying, people just don't really like see the value or what can be like at the core of a comedy movie. I think that there can be a lot of like, you can convey plenty of thought-provoking things in comedy through comedy, but sometimes we just don't take comedy seriously, and so it's like, well, that's not like a real movie, like that's just a farce, that's just this. Makes me think of when we did the Birdcage in our like queer series, and I mean there's plenty of great like Men Loving Men movies out there, and Birdcage is one of them. And even though the whole thing is really silly, like a comedy should be taken seriously too. I think it's like, I don't know. Yeah, it's frustrating because I think that there's, even with such a funny core, there's also a lot of things that they're saying there too that's not absent just because there's laughs.
Well, I think a lot of it seems like with a lot of comedies now, it's like it needs to be funny, but then it also needs to have like this kind of like intelligence behind it, and it's more like kind of how like not only just like what it's saying in a broader sense, but also um it's like a kind of leading somewhere. And again, like I think that makes screwball comedies a difficult genre to utilize with like modern audiences, because it I just described it, like it's so confectionery. It's just there's no, it's just kind of, it's just empty, and it's completely built on the like how the characters are interacting, the lines,
Yeah.
bouncing off one another. Just the scenes are like set up to be absurd, because the whole point of a screwball comedy is to put the characters in an absurd situation
Yeah.
and let them bounce off of each other.
And I think we're going to see that big time when we get to Smiley Face, because it is just like an avalanche of like increasingly horrible but hilarious situations.
Well, you think about like I think a lot of comedies are more dictated by like improv, and improv's different than this.
Yeah.
Like improv,
Yes.
even though it's people kind of bouncing off one another, there's still a structure to it. Like you're saying, this is the prompt, and we're working within this. And I think that there's a little bit more flexibility and a little bit more. It's not the role is not as necessarily defined in a screwball comedy. And like I think a lot of I think a lot of like comedy performers today in movies are playing on, are kind of playing on their persona within the improv. Even though they're improving, they're kind of like Melissa McCarthy is doing Melissa McCarthy things,
Right.
Seth Rogen is doing Seth Rogen things. Kristen Wiig's doing Kristen Wiig things. Will Ferrell's doing Will Ferrell things, and like there's nothing wrong with that. But like, I don't think I could see somebody like Will Ferrell in a screwball Well, I could maybe see Will Ferrell in a screwball comedy. I think that you kind of have to concede yourself less to your persona and more to just like the constraints of the character. Like I'm thinking about Clark Gable in It Happened One Night. He's doing a little bit of like a Clark Gable thing, but he's also just kind of like he's defined his persona as this character and is kind of working within that whole element. You think of like Cary Grant and His Girl Friday. He's funny because he's very like, this is who I am, and you're trying to see if he can break out of that. So I think it's just I think just in the way comedy structured now, that's why they just don't respond to it, because it's not something that they look for.
Well, I think they're wrong. First off, I think that like
screwball comedies are great.
They're so good. And I think it's because it knows what it's doing. It's very aware. Like, we are going over the top. This is like, if what's the name of that movie that you just talked about with Harrison Ford?
Oh, The Fugitive.
If that is like top tier action, right? All the explosions and the crashes and all this is what we're doing, but we're doing with comedy. Like, this is over the top. We're going hard. Everybody's playing this like really loud, goofy ass character. And we know this isn't like completely reality, but at the same time, it's fun, and we're doing it, and we're just going all out for it. And we're, I don't know, it's just energizing, especially when it's really well done. I think it's the one thing I disagree with you is that I think that, there is a lot of it that is just for fun and doesn't necessarily have to have like layers and layers of thought and like stuff behind it. But I think that plenty of screwball comedies do have like a good emotional core. I think that this one does too.
No, you have to have a good emotional core, because that's key to the humor, and it's key to you investing in the characters.
Right.
I'm just saying, what I'm saying is, it's not like it's none of the movies are trying to tell you something. Like it's not like you're supposed to come away from this and go like while you can maybe appreciate the depiction of a polyamorous relationship in this movie, I
Mhm.
don't think it's I think Gregg Araki would agree with me that he's not instructing you on how to feel
No.
about polyamorous relationships.
Yeah. No. I guess maybe what I would think is like if he is trying to say anything, it's just like you need to live a lifestyle that makes sense for you and the people in it, and like screw anybody who doesn't understand it, but don't live your life that in a way that's going to make you miserable your whole life. Like you should value your personal happiness over like, I don't know, some idea of like a normal regular life. And I think that is something that he plays with in a lot of his movies, and I think that's what's here too. But yeah, like you're saying too, like it is just fun. It is just loud, and it's fast paced, and I don't know, kind of like Down with Love. I think the first time I watched Down with Love, it feels like it just starts with like horns blaring, and then just starts like at 60 miles per hour and just flies and never
Yeah.
slows down. And so when you first start watching it, you're like, whoa, oh, we're doing this? Okay, this
Well,
is how it's going to be like the whole time. Okay, got it, got it. And then it is, and
yeah.
it's so fun though.
Well, it goes back to I think, and I think it is however you feel about it. Like when a lot of movies now, and I think that we talked about Christopher Nolan a couple weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
um I think a lot of people go into movies and kind of want to a degree, like not necessarily like a sit down and go, this is how this movie's going to work, but like
Right.
they kind of want something in the movie to kind of tell them how it's going to operate. And I think with screwball comedies it's difficult because like you're talking about with Down with Love and with
Mm-hmm.
Splendor, screwball comedies come in and they're operating on their own register, and they're not
Figure
going
it
to,
out, guys.
and
Catch up. Yeah.
because it's working at like 150 speed, it's
Yes.
not going to sit there and be like, so this is how we're going to act. It's like, no,
Yes.
you just, again, like you have to get on it on that
Yes.
wavelength. And I think that modern, like looking at the modern criticism and modern critics on it, it's because people are seem to be relatively unwilling to just kind of roll with it,
Yeah.
and then catch up and kind of vibe with whatever level it's playing with. I think a lot of people expect kind of a, not again, like they need a little bit of a, this is how this movie's going to operate, and these movies don't
Mhm.
operate like that. They just kind of go, you're either on the train or you're not.
Right. I feel like that's how, even when with his like less, like punchy comedies with his, maybe his more like serious stuff. I feel like that's how all of his movies are. He's like, look, I got some weirdos here. This is just what it is. You're here, you're not. I don't know what to tell you. And he just kind of does it. He writes some weird people, some weird, loud, like funky people who are flawed but really interesting. And I think he's great.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing I've liked about all, even though I haven't liked all the movies so
Right.
far. Like he
Yeah.
definitely has like a very, whether you like it or not, a very defined voice,
Hmm.
and I'll always kind of have at least some appreciation for somebody who kind of just goes, I'm gonna make a whatever
This is what
my
we're
name
doing.
is film. Like this is just what I'm gonna do. You may not, it's something like we talked about with, I think we've talked about before with like Wes Anderson. Like Wes Anderson is never going to make like like he's not going to like make a Marvel movie and like fit into that mold.
God, I hope not.
He's constantly just going to make a Wes Anderson movie, and if you don't like that, like that's fine. But that's just what he's going to do. Like that.
What if Wes Anderson was going to make a Marvel movie? Which superhero do you think he would be best suited for?
I don't know. Somebody in Twee. I don't know.
I think this is a fun thought experiment, and I really want an
I
answer.
don't think it is. I think it's excruciating.
Anyway, yeah, exactly. Though he has his like defined style, and it's like get on it or don't. I don't care. But this is what we're doing. The symmetrical shit, and the funny
Yeah,
way people talk, and the tweed, and we're doing it.
yeah, and it's kind of, I've noticed that in some of the reviews that I've picked up throughout the series on his movies, is that's kind of the issue, is it, you know it hasn't I haven't really seen any good criticism in writing about Gregg Araki, just because it seems like people kind of either thumbing their nose up, or
Right.
just being kind of just outright rejecting his style. And I'm like, again, like I haven't been I'm not batting 1,000 on
Not
all his
100%.
movies,
Yeah.
but but I think that you have to at least assess it on the level that it's operating at. And it seems like, at least from the writing that I've seen, like the modern, in a sense of like when the movie came out, the modern criticism of the movie when it came out, it just seemed like people kind of rejecting it without kind of operating on the level that it was working on.
I don't know. I mean, he obviously knows what he's doing. He obviously has seen a movie, you know, like he's an intentional filmmaker. And I think that people who just dismiss it as frivolous or just really, I think that they're not.
Listen, I don't think it's for every. You know,
I don't know.
I'm not gonna
man.
I'm not gonna recommend like the Doom Generation to everybody.
Oh, sure, yeah.
You know, but like I think that you either, I don't know. I think, you know, we want to try to at least I do, like, approach the movie on the level that it's working on, and that I might come out of it and be like, no, I didn't like that.
Yeah.
But like you have to at least do that, because if, you know, I think too much of the time now we approach movies on what we like, the expectations of how we want it to be in our minds, the experience that we want out of it, and that's not how movies work.
No.
That's not how any, like, I mean, theater or music or like none of that works on, like, you know, I'm thinking about how I want Jessy to react to this. You know, it's like, no, it's just you'll either react or not. I don't care.
Yeah, this is what I'm thinking. I want to share with y'all, see if anybody makes sense of it.
Yeah. Any last thoughts on Splendor? You know,
this is like, I don't know if this is intentional or not, but you know, we said it's adapted or really inspired by Design for Living, directed by Ernst Lubitsch. So the little hunky dude who like comes in and she thinks about marrying him instead in the middle of the movie with the blue eyes, who plays Tim in the L Word, by the way. Fun fact. His name is Ernest. I just caught that this time around. I feel like I'm wondering if that's got to be on purpose, right? Ernest. I don't know. Ernst, the movie is, you know, inspired by Design for Living by Ernst Lubitsch. The guy's name is Ernest. That's all I got. That's it. That's my final thoughts. I love it. I think you should watch it. I think everybody should watch it and like it because it's good, but I'm biased.
Yeah, I mean, if you're, I would say between this and maybe like The Living End, those would be two good starting points for Gregg Araki out of the ones that we've watched so far. But yeah, this one, the only trepidation I would have with having somebody watch this first is if they really liked it. I don't feel like it would be a good indicator of like the rest of it. I think you would watch this and be like, oh, this is great. And then you watch other ones and be like, what the fuck happened?
Well, then, yeah, you watch this one and then you watch some more and you're like, what am I supposed to do with all these big feelings I'm having? This is so confusing. Then listen to our podcast and work through the Gregg Araki experience with us, and then you will get it. And then you'll be Araki pilled like us. I had one final thought. I love him. I had another thought. Oh, I guess just also, you know, like thinking about movies that have like polyamory in them. I've been like just searching for this, and there's not a lot. I feel like that generally there's not even a lot of people, first of all, like making movies, talking about these movies. And this one is not one that's going to like pop up on a list of movies about polyamory. And it fucking should, because it's lovely and it actually has a happy ending, and it's not. I mean, I think that another good example that we also talked about on the Pride series was Professor Marston and the Wonder Woman, which is a very similar premise, right? Some people like decide to be in a triad, but that is just also so intense and sad. And this is not. Like, this is just a happy poly movie. I don't know why I don't see it talked about more in that context as well. But more people need to be making lists about that, just like people are making lists about queer movies and good queer movies. I don't know. That's another thought I have.
Yeah. All right. Well, that'll wrap up our episode on Splendor. You can find us. You can find us on social media at Facebook at facebook.com/Cinematary, on Twitter and Instagram at handle at Cinematary, and on Letterboxd at letterboxd.com/Cinematary, where we have a list of all the movies that we talked about in this episode. Thank you to our patrons. If you'd like to support the show, whether for $1 or $5, you can do that at patreon.com/Cinematary. Thank you to our patrons: Cam, Chad Newsom, Candace Sisson, Ron Hayes, Teresa Marsathi, Titus Arthur, Tyler Chandler, Whitney Rio Ross. Thank you so much for supporting the show. Next week, we're going to continue our Gregg Araki series with 2004's Mysterious Skin, which I feel like is probably the one that most people are probably familiar with.
I'm a little nervous. Like I've just heard it's very intense. I really want to like it, but I have no idea what I will experience.
Yeah, but it seems to be the one that most people are familiar with.
Yeah.
So until next week, we'll see you then.
Stay cool.